when the big red button says go live on it and you hit the big red button, it ought to just work, right?
I mean, in all your years of working in technology, Tom, I'm sure you know better than that. It is not always doing things it's supposed to do. But hello and welcome, everybody. Becky is busy today and could not join us, and she sends much sadness and separation anxiety coping mechanisms to all of you. I am Urvashi, technical community champion slash sidekick to Becky, and we have Tom Bridge, who needs no introduction. We were just
In case
talking.
this is your first episode of the IT Hour, hi everybody. I'm Tom Bridge. I'm the director of product management for devices here at Jump Cloud. I was going to say I've been with the company, gosh, 3 years now, 3 years and 18 days, give or take. It's a great pleasure to be back with the IT Hour this week. It's one of my favorite things to do every week. So.
Yes, and you've been at Jump Cloud for 3 years, but you've been doing something else for 8 years now.
Yes,
I just found
the
out
Mac
that
Admins
you're.
podcast is a little over 8 years. We got started after the MacAduck conference in that would have been 2016 in London, England, where a very close friend of mine, happened to walk into the pub one day as I was walking. And he was like, "We should start a podcast!" Exclamation point! And I was like, "Sure, that sounds great." I was going to say that's been going on ever since. So it's been a lot of fun. And unfortunately, Charles is no longer with us. He passed away 2 weekends ago. And we are
Oh, that's
very sad about it.
recent.
It's been very,
Sorry
very
to hear
hard
that.
to lose Charles. I just want everybody to know, if you've ever been helped by cryptid.com, anybody who's a Mac admin knows that, if cryptid.com shows up in the Google results for something that you've been trying to resolve, the answer's in there. And that was all Charles. Charles Edge, RIP. It's been a real challenge to kind of get through the last couple of weeks, as we've dealt with that tragedy. But that's not here what we're here to talk about today. We've got some other great things to talk about today. Do you want to lay out the agenda for folks, and we can dive right in?
Yes, but before that, I mean, condolences. News like this
Thank you, friend.
always, shakes me up a little bit. But it's amazing to see that he's left behind like such an epic legacy that continues to help people and will, going forward. So
I mean, 100%. And you look at any one of Charles's many careers, whether that was as a product manager at Jamf on the original Jamf Now called Bushel, or his immense career as a writer, and all of the books that he has written, including a 4-volume history of computing compendium that we are hoping to get published, because it is. I mean, the contracts are signed, but they've got to take it through the final tech review and things along those lines. I mean, the number of contributions that Charles has made to the community are certainly legion. So
that is that's a life to remember for sure. Thank you for sharing
correct.
that, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now coming to hopefully what will be our legacy, which is the IT hour, something that we can leave behind for people to enjoy when we are gone. Sorry, I'm trying to create a segue and I just don't think I'm doing it right, but
Just dive right in,
I
friend.
tried.
It's going to be okay.
Okay, so it seems like there's a lot of chat going on about blocking USB devices using epoxy in the USB port. That's an idea.
I was going
Then
to say
there was
one of my favorite meme images is it's progressively larger wrenches as you deal with things that should be tight, and the last one is an oxyacetylene torch. Can't be tight if you're a liquid. And that is
I love
very
that.
much how some organizations approach the USB devices or the USB ports on their systems. Obviously, I live here in the Washington D.C. area, and the Washington D.C. area is known for many things, not least of which the number of different intelligence agencies that are present here. Not to mention the military, being headquartered at the Pentagon. And of course, for a long time, what they would do is get the hot glue gun out, or the epoxy, and essentially just like cover over the USB port. There was nothing getting into there because there was no point in having one. Now, obviously, that's a very extreme solution here in the year of our
But
Beyonce
it is a
2024.
solution.
but it is a solution. And there are, I mean, I was going to say that that technology definitely remains undefeated in terms of its ability to block USB devices. However, it doesn't make for a great user experience, right? Like, I mean, I think we think about it from the perspective of, all of the different things that we want. We want our users we want to trust our users. Obviously, it's trust but verify here in, 2024 and things along those lines. But, from those perspectives, we're really excited to talk a little bit about, other ways that you can solve that problem, especially because if you epoxy off the USB port, you can't use it for anything. And there are a bunch of devices that you might.
That's what people were talking about. How do I charge my vape?
Yep, that's no. I was going to say, how do you plug in a scanner or a physical printer? Or my favorite, use case for for a USB-C port these days is a YubiKey, right? Like it's very, very difficult to beat a hardware key, and that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, is that being able to selectively block USB devices based on what they actually do, as opposed to, being able to just having to put a blanket block on the port. I think there's some really good opportunities for us to talk about.
I think my personal MacBook doesn't have any USB ports at all. It has like two USB-C ports, and that's it.
Correct. Well, I was going to say those are USB ports.
Plug-in. Yeah,
yep. Still USB. I was going to say I happened to bring one of those to the thing today because I'm going to do a live demo. And we're going to do some live demo. I found this USB drive on my front porch this morning. It said, I mean, sure, of course, we're going to plug this into JumpCloud's machines and call it a day. But, I was going to say, one of the things we used to do for our customers, not when I was not at JumpCloud, when I was a Techvolutionary, was security review. And, one of the things that we would help them do is, find a physical penetration tester. So somebody who was big and focused on, physical access to offices and, hey, can I pick that lock? What would happen if I tried to pick that lock at 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday? Would the alarm go off? Would the police come? And helping to do those kind of physical security exams. One of the things that we would actually help them do is print up USB devices that have the company logo of the suite that we were testing, and see if people would pick them up and plug them into their systems just to see what would happen. And so, in the spirit of those kind of tests, we're going to run with this USB device was found in the hallway, of my apartment building, or my front porch, and so that'll be what we test in just a little bit. But we're not quite there yet because there's still some other stuff we need to talk about first.
A few things, yes, right. A few things. Firstly, I was going to say something about picking up random. Oh yeah, I remember now. Basically, I've had a running joke about like sending people one free malware, and it seems like somebody actually went and did it. So if it's one of y'all, it's not going to work because we have policies. Anyway, before we get to the good stuff, just a few quick community updates, etc. I have posted an IT hour transcript. I'm a little behind on those, but I'm working on catching up. Sean from the JumpCloud team has posted time-based device admin privilege elevation with Jira, which is basically using the temporary elevated access API endpoint and showing you how to do that with Jira. So that's a pretty cool how-to document. And then moving on to product releases and announcements, Tom's going to talk about the big one. But also Josh Rowland posted that JumpCloud now supports searching for Microsoft Store applications directly from the admin portal. So if you remember a couple of weeks ago, he was on talking about how you have to open the link and copy the ID and then paste it into JumpCloud. And he mentioned that the integration would be there soon, so you could just search it inside the JumpCloud admin portal. And now you can do that. So there's a post about that in the community, which will be linked in the show notes. And that's all I have. Over to you, Mr. Malware is going to plug it into his computer.
We'll get to that in just a second. I do want to talk for just a quick second about the product release that Josh released this week. When we released the original Microsoft Store integration, all it really was looking for the string. And you had to go find the string from the URL on the Microsoft Store. And we got some really great feedback from folks that would be like, can we just search for stuff instead? And the answer is yes. And thanks to one of our teams that's been hard at work on this at Jump Cloud, that's now part of the product as of yesterday. You can open up the software management screen, go to the Windows tab, click on the plus, and say look for a Microsoft Store application. There's a search field. We'll search the Microsoft Store for you, and make those available, and essentially allow you to deploy those individual applications. Now, I do want to point out this is not for legacy applications yet. Those legacy applications that don't work over the MDM channel, we still can't install. We're working on that. And we'll have a lot more to say here in the next couple of weeks as we get closer to a great solution there. But, I was going to say, we're well aware that, some of those key applications that are in the legacy category are super useful. And we want to make sure that those are available then. So very, very excited for folks to go. Some of the legacy applications, Adobe unfortunately only makes Acrobat available through the legacy channel. And so you can't search for Acrobat and have that returned. But anything that's in a modern style MSIX installer that's available part of the Microsoft Store, that's one of the things that we're going to be pushing for. Jonathan asked a really great question in the chat, which is, can we search for, chocolatey, packages too? And the answer is, unfortunately, no. We have some real challenges working with the chocolatey folks. Their API limits are very, very tiny. Any customer who's got more than a handful of devices on the same subnet has run into this with us in the past. And like we mentioned at the end of last year, we don't see chocolatey as a great way to move together. And to build future functionality here at Jump Cloud. And so, we would largely consider our chocolatey integration to be in maintenance mode at this point. We have some exciting alternatives coming down the pike around software management that we'll be happy to talk about here on the IT Hour as we go through the third quarter, and to have a lot more to say there. We're really excited about what that possibility represents. So look for us to talk a little bit more about that in the future. So I was going to say the big news is, in fact, USB blocking is back here at Jump Cloud, and I'm going to pull up a quick slide deck because, there's nothing that says excitement like a slide deck, right? So let me go ahead.
I thought my jazz hands were doing it.
Okay, fine.
I tried. Brandon is listing a bunch of apps. Are those all legacy apps? Figma, Git?
No, those applications are actually all applications that are available in the store, I believe. Right. Hopefully, Brandon will correct me if I am wrong. But let me go ahead and share a browser. Give me just one quick second. I'm going to just pull this out of the browser I'm already in. And we're going to show a screen, and we're going to show a window. We're going to talk a little bit about USB blocking returning to macOS. So, hey, everybody, I'm Tom Bridge. I'm the Director of Product Management. We're talking about this today, and some really exciting things. And of course, you're probably thinking it's about damn time that the USB blocking came back to macOS. Yes, it is. And I want to talk about why it had to go away, what we've done to help address that for our customers, what that might open up the door for the future. Will be associated with this. But in order to do that, I need to talk about a quick history lesson. I also need to talk about how do we fix it. I need to talk about how it works. And then, we'll also talk towards the end about, what about the past and how we address this going forward. So I do want to talk about a little bit of history here. When macOS, started to really embrace the MDM space, or around about macOS, 10.7, which then was called OS 10.7, or OS 10 Lion. So we're really excited to talk about the media management allowed media payload, which doesn't have two of the same word in it or anything like that. Apple is really not as good at naming things in the MDM era as they have been in the more modern era. So starting in that period of time, you used to be able to allow or deny individual, optical media, optical read-write media, physically attached volumes, as well as disk images. You used to be able to set some individual payload options associated with each of those storage types. And unfortunately, back in 2019 to 2020 range, Apple started to mark that setting as deprecated in the library, but it was still supported in macOS Catalina 10.15, and in macOS Big Sur or macOS 11. Apple began, however, to push people towards the system extension framework and endpoint security framework as a way to do this instead. Unfortunately, Apple was still supporting the old method, but they weren't really clear on when it would actually go away until until 2021, when with the release of macOS Monterey, they really said, hey, really, this isn't going to support, this isn't going to, get going and really be part of the functionality here. And so it wasn't until macOS 13.3 Ventura that, actually they stopped the policy from working entirely. So this was a place where Apple didn't really provide a great set of deprecation structures. They did not have a lot of focuses associated with this. It's not ideal, and so we had to start to look into other things as a way of fixing it. So we're going to talk a little bit about the future. Endpoint security framework is how we accomplish this today. It's now a part of the Jump Cloud tray application due to the way that Apple requires certain system pieces to be put together. System extensions must live in an application that's in the applications folder. It can't exist in the /op/jc folder with the agent. It has to actually live in a donor application that's part of the applications folder here. So when we think about what the endpoint security framework is it's a C API for macOS development, and it's meant to monitor the system at a very, very low level. It's also meant to be used in a pub-sub model, so a publication subscription model, so that events can be subscribed to, events like disk mounts or disk attach or device attach. And it allows you to have access to those from the system extensions framework, and allows you to observe events and to subscribe to those events and then decide whether or not you want to act on those events. So we're really excited about the ability of Jump Cloud to start to do those things. Events include disk mounts from external and internal sources, as well as information about the disk type that has been attached. Obviously, with disk images being so crucial to the Apple platform and for Apple updates and for other related things, we didn't want to totally block off disk image opportunities, if only because for selfish reasons, the Jump Cloud agent is also distributed through mechanisms that may be very similar to that. And we want to make sure that we can still do those kind of things on a more global basis. Installer packages and disk images are excluded from this because this is all about blocking just those external volumes that get plugged directly into the machine, like the one that I brought with me today that we're going to talk a little bit about from the demo perspective. So system extensions require special policies to activate control and permission. Anybody who's dealt with, deploying CrowdStrike or SentinelOne or, some printer drivers, which is unfortunately true in our modern era, you need a system extension to do those kind of crazy things, especially to attach physical hardware or anything with a network filter or a web filter. You need to be able to deploy those kind of system extensions policies through the privacy preferences policy control system that Apple makes available and that we call an app privacy policy. So we're taking care of a lot of the details for this underneath the hood. And so I do want to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts here of how the USB blocking tools work in Jump Cloud. This is really, really simple. It's really straightforward. So, from this perspective, as we mentioned, all of this is built into jumpcloud.app. It's the tray application that lives in the applications folder. It contains a system extension inside of it. Now, in addition, we also include a system extensions payload in the Jump Cloud, MDM default configuration that allows us to activate that system extension when we need to. And so in that case, we're deploying a system extensions policy directly related to the end user's device. And then if you so choose to block external storage, you can add an external storage restrictions policy that creates the USB blocking effect here. So related to that, there's you might be asking, well, what do I need in order for this to work? And the answer is you need agent 1.185.0 or later. which is the Tray app version 2.2.0, build 19 or later. In addition, any macOS 11 or later systems, that's one more version of the operating system that we currently support. Technically, Jump Cloud support is macOS 12 and later. This will work on macOS 11 and later. This will not work on macOS 10.15 and earlier. So be aware of that. And if you have any of those systems that are still running Catalina out there, it's probably time to rethink that. There are great upgrade paths for you to get to a more modern version of the operating system. And I strongly encourage you to do so. So policy was unlocked yesterday, and so you can go find it today. It's called a Mac USB external storage restrictions policy. So that is available to you there. You might look at that in system preferences. In system preferences, if you go to privacy and security and then profiles all the way at the bottom, you're going to see a profile that looks like this, Jump Cloud Endpoint Security. You can see that that policy, when it's applied, will allow our endpoint security extension to run. And then you will also see, in addition to that, a USB external storage restriction policy if that's applied to your system. We apply that over the MDM channel, and that turns on the storage restriction there. The end user gets to see an experience like this in the Tray application that says when you click on the Tray application, it will very clearly identify to the end user that external disk mounting is disabled by their admin. And when they attach a disk, they'll see a notification from the system in the upper right-hand corner that says, external device is not recognized. External disk mounting is disabled by policy. Contact your IT admin for more information. When you click that alert, you're going to be taken to a Jump Cloud Help Center article that's going to tell you all about this policy and how to address it. So be aware that that is part of this that's out there. So you might be asking yourself, Tom, what kind of storage does this policy block? And the answer is, thumb drives, jump drives, like we were just talking about. It blocks external hard drives, so 2.5, 3.5-inch drives that are attached directly to the device. We also block SD cards as well using this technology. There's no storage volume that we have found that gets around this yet. So, in those cases, you can attach it. You can try and attach a giant Thunderbolt array, and it's going to fail. You can try it, and anything that will attempt to, use the PCI Express system, the direct USB mounting system, the Thunderbolt mounting system, or the SD card mounting solution on the individual MacBook device or MacBook Pro device is going to be blocked, and the user will be notified that they have a problem at that point. So, I think that it's really exciting to kind of talk through, a lot of this, but I think it might be more fun for us to, show what this looks like live. So I'm going to share a window here. I need to share my MacBook Air, which is sitting on the desk in front of me here. So I was going to say, you guys should see a MacBook Air screen here. This is a system that has the policy already attached. And so if I look over here, I can scroll down to privacy and security. I can look in profiles. And down here at the very bottom, you can see an external storage restriction. You can say, you see the setting is set to enable mount block. And in this particular case, when we plug in a device, if I open up Control Center over here, you'll see an alert. Jump Cloud Endpoint Security and external devices not recognized. And if I click on that alert, it's going to open up a browser. It's going to take you out to the Jump Cloud Help Center. You're going to see that there is a storage policy that's been applied to the system. It's very clear on the considerations that are applied here, and this this policy is linked out from directly within Jump Cloud's community post, so that you can read more about this. Now, if I were to remove the USB storage restriction from this device, and I can go into the admin portal and do that and hit save and saved on the configuration. You'll see that policy is no longer present. As soon as I plug in the device again, you're going to see it show up on the desktop. And so the user now can use these MB driver audio for Realtek devices, as well as any number of other Windows volumes that are present here. This is clearly a disk that I had used once upon a time to flash a bunch of things with different drivers. But I can tell that this no longer has everything that I need on it, and I can just eject it from my system. So in that case, now I can also see, hey, my device password's up to date. Everything looks good there. You'll notice the link no longer wiggles like it used to. That was a side benefit of doing some of the update changes here that were associated with this. If I put the extension, or if I put the policy back on the system here and hit save, I'm once again in the state where external disk mounting is disabled, and the drive will no longer attach if I remove and re-add it. So the important things to recognize associated with all of this is that if a device is attached when the policy goes into effect, the device will stay mounted until such time as the system restarts or the user session ends and they log back out and log back in again. We will block for all users of a device. We block at the operating system boot level so that you can't just try and plug it into a system that's off and have that volume mount at the end of it. We are pretty detailed here in terms of how this works. I saw a really great question out there about what happens with MFC printers with SD card readers handle. How are those handled? So those actually present as multiple different devices. They present as the printer, they present as the scanner, and they present as the storage device. We will block the storage device. We will not block the printer and the scanner in those cases. We are only focused on blocking those devices that actually contain storage as opposed to anything else. Mike Egloff asks a really fun question. Can it use a allow list or deny list associated with this? And the answer is no. We don't trust those identifiers as being unique enough or not hackable enough. Our experience with those is that they can be pretty arbitrary and they can be flashed away from. So the challenge is a problem there. And while we're looking at different ways around that particular space, we don't trust USB devices. If you're in a state where you actually really need to block these devices, you are also in a state where you're going to have another way to deploy this out. So Kelly asks an important question. Is this only for macOS and Windows, or will it work well for mobile devices as well? There are different policies that are available for Windows, for macOS devices as opposed to Windows devices, as opposed to mobile devices. We do offer you the ability to block USB storage devices on supervised iOS devices today. We cannot handle those restrictions for device-enrolled devices because that is not how device-enrolled devices work or user-enrolled devices work. The Apple security model is such that unless the device is supervised, the end user is largely in control of the USB port at the bottom of the system. So if you would like that to change, I strongly recommend going into Feedback Assistant on your Mac or on your iOS device and filing a feedback request that those things should be broader and that those functionalities should be available to you for the rest. While I can say that you may still get a ticket. Go ahead, Urvashi.
Oh, sorry. There was a question earlier from Nathan asking, assuming optical storage is also covered, question mark.
Optical storage is not part of this, if only because we are largely not, there are no Macs that ship with an optical drive anymore. And so if you bring in an entire Blu-ray drive, that may still work. It is also likely that those storage volumes mount directly via the USB test environment. We have not tested that. If you'd like to test that and get back to me with one way or the other, I would expect it not to work. But I would be very interested in a bug report, and we may have some additional information that we request from you as part of that. So my expectation is optical drives should not work, but we did not directly test on optical drives because they're not part of any configuration that actually ships today. And we went and looked. We could not find a device in our customer base that really is focused on that today. So I would love additional information.
I think there's a follow-up from Charles. If optical drive is connected via USB? And then also a question about floppy drives.
Oh, floppy drives. Oh, no. Oh, no. I mean, those will show up almost exactly the same mechanism as a USB storage device. So as a flash drive, the operating system largely sees those in one particular way over the USB device. If you happen to have like a specialized floppy drive, I would be very interested in that. So, and I was going to say, I would not expect a floppy drive to work.
Also, for further requests, you know my favorite link, you guys, the feature request link. Submit some things. There is also Kelly who says, my only feedback so far is that we should really stop picking on Sam. Everyone knows it's Jamie who would absolutely plug a random USB thingy into his computer. I was going to say Keely might do it also. This is a Ted Lasso discussion, if y'all are keeping up. I went and watched Ted Lasso because I had so much FOMO from you and Becky talking about it on the IT hour that I was like, I need to know. All right. Are there any other questions? Real question is zip drives. What about my Jazz
I would
drive?
expect those. Oh no, let's not go through the storage pantheon. I was there when I mean, are we going to look at SideQuest volumes also? I would be thrilled to hear more about how folks are using this. We do have a feedback mechanism for this that's in the community post. So please respond to the community post if you're seeing something happen. We went through every device that we could find in a straightforward way. And we think that we've gotten most of them. So if you have something that is very bespoke, I'm looking at you folks with a FireWire 400 device that is going to go through 3 adapters to get there, but I'm pretty sure we should block you on there too.
I love hearing about vintage technology.
Yes.
It's like so cool.
I was going to
that you
say,
have to
especially the
connect
click of death
things.
on zip disks.
What is a cable? What are y'all plugging in? Everything is Bluetooth. What is this? Keep up, you guys. I literally don't even know what a Jazz drive is. I'm going to Google it.
It's like a zip drive, but bigger. So that's that. Once
Cool.
upon a time when zip disks were, 100 meg, and we thought that was massive. The Jazz drives, the storage carts that went into that were in the gigabyte range, and that was very, very, awesome. So
So there was
at the
like a
time, anyway.
physical zip thing, not just like the right click compress dot zip.
Yes, there was a physical
Oh my
disk. It was a cartridge
gosh.
that was about this wide. It was a little bit bigger than a floppy disk, and it was, I was going to say 100 megs to a disk. And so, like, everybody and their cousin had a zip drive because you wanted to move a big file. That was the only way to do it.
I'm like learning so much. Thank you guys for this lesson
You're so
in
welcome.
like the history of devices. Did we miss any questions, or is this just all people learning how to connect outdated things to USB? Y'all are not old. Y'all are experienced. Okay,
Seasoned,
it's called a
seasoned.
reframe.
Yes.
Seasoned. Seasoned well, like a good curry.
Now I
I do
want
that
curry.
accent
I
too
did have
well.
curry for lunch yesterday, though. So
I did too. And today, shockingly. Y'all are saying that my accent is really good. Thank you. I watched a lot of like Love is Blind recently. So I was just like, did I enjoy it? Yes. Should I have enjoyed it? No. Does everybody talk like this on that show? Yes. Why are we asking our own questions and answering them? I don't know. But it's giving. I can't keep up because these days I have too many words. I also recently watched for the first time in my life, Thelma and Louise. And I actually wanted to like ping Kelly and be like, I'm going through the recommendations that y'all gave me, but nobody's ever actually sent me a list. And also, Kelly, I thought we were friends before I watched Ted Lasso, but I guess we can be better friends now. Once your over-seasoned back pain subscription kicks in, I get that. I straight up I've had 2 orthopedic surgeries, one on my shoulder, one on my knee. So don't even get me started on being well seasoned. Rob has sent us a link to SideQuest Disk. Oh,
oh yes, that was
everyone does
another
this.
storage cart technology that competed directly with the zip disk at the time. And
Oh my
it's really
gosh.
funny because I've realized I've become the kind of old that that it's like, oh yeah, I remember that, and that is where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
I mean, It's when I hang out with my niece, I I feel retro, vintage. Moving on. Are there any other questions? I don't think I missed any because we have some news things, and I have all like happy news today. I may or may not have selected only the happy news today because we're all dealing with Becky Scott separation anxiety. Oh my God, some people have. Rob says he found a disc. Y'all need to hold on to these because they will be collectibles. Like, my brother should have saved his Pokemon cards. Did he? He did not. Anyway, moving on to the news. Speaking of vintage/retro, my first headline for today is the basic programming language turned 60. It can officially redeem its 401k. That's 60, right? Or is it 65?
Oh no, you can fit in 1K for that. I mean that only fits. That only requires a couple of bits. So I was going to say 2 to the 5 is 64. 2 to the 6. So we're good. We're only in a couple of bits here. But yeah, happy birthday to Basic. So I will say happy birthday. 10, happy birthday. 20, go to 10. And there we get the basement. I mean, and Ross says it's retirement age. No, in the United States, retirement age is still 65. So
yeah, that's what I was wondering. No, like, when can Basic redeem its 401k? Is 65. Okay, 5 more years Basic. I'm just gonna read like the last 2 sections from this article, which I thought was really sweet. Today, Basic remains popular in hobbyist retro computing circles. Did you guys know that there's a genre called retro computing?
Oh yes.
Oh my gosh!
Of course.
Is that where you guys like get together with your old like pluggy things and like load them up? Is it? No? Is it not? Okay, sorry. Moving on. It says, give Tom a minute to recover from that.
Oh my.
So it says it never truly died out, but continued to evolve, despite its decline in practical use. Basic's legacy lives on through its influence on subsequent programming languages and its role in making computing accessible to a broader audience. So as we commemorate the 60th anniversary of Basic, let's raise a glass to Kimeni and Kurtz, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, for empowering several generations of young computer programmers. So, a toast.
Clearly a toast. I mean, there are very few languages that are really seminal in this regard. And, we think a little bit about, Java, obviously, if it's 30 years old, but Basic predates them all. And, a lot of Basic programs are where a lot of people started to, really started to do their programming for the first time. I absolutely wrote Basic when I was in school. And I won't say what part of school because it will probably upset some people. But when we get into the languages that have had the most impact, Basic is where you started. And a lot of those magazines, we used to get computer magazines, and in the back there'd be like 3 pages run, with the line numbers and the whole 9 yards, and there would be a Basic program that you would type into your computer from the back of this magazine, and that was how programs got shared. In those days, whether they weren't coming on floppy disks, they may have come from the back of a magazine. And I definitely remember, remember magazine programs being the way that you start to learn with that stuff. So that was, a really great, part of my youth was getting those programs that way.
This is why I was so behind when I moved from India to the US to study computer science. Because I got there and these people are like, oh yeah, we've been coding since we were like 1.5 years old. And I was like, I got my first computer like not that long ago, and we learned literally C++ in school, but that's it. So I was very caught off guard because I was like, I know bubble sort, I know other kinds of sort. I can do sorts in C++, I can do sorts in Java. Of course, I can get a degree in computer science. And I get there, it's a different story. Moving on to new and exciting things. Microsoft has finally joined the gang and is allowing you to use your passkey to log into your Microsoft account, which it did not do, apparently.
Hmm.
It was just now.
Well, I was going to say we've only recently gotten, passkey support for Apple IDs, and that's only been in the last, in the last 9 months, and it still requires, macOS 14 or iOS 17. It can't be done on all versions of the operating system. So, those are, I don't think Microsoft's behind the curve here. They probably actually had some additional
Yeah.
work to do associated with this, but I'm thrilled to see it because passkeys are a great way to access key resources. And they provide you with opportunities that are passwordless. I don't know if anybody saw our webinar this week for passwordless authentication with Scott Reed and Chase Doling, and I strongly recommend we'll find the link and get folks to go out and take a look at that. But looking at passwordless technologies is a really important part of how we go forward to the future. If we think about how old the password is, I'd love to see the password being at retirement age. I'd love to never have to type another password again. I'd love to never have to change a password ever again. And so to be able to move that direction for operating system level support for Windows accounts and things along those lines, I'm really thrilled to see it.
I think I just lost perspective because 9 months seems like such a long time. But because at JumpCloud, we're like every week there's a new release. So I was like, what is 9 months? But yeah, I guess for enterprise terms, that's like 3 quarters, which is not bad. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So good job, Microsoft. In other good Microsoft news, they have officially, well, I guess they reworded it, but they are banning the US Police Department from using enterprise AI tools for facial recognition. So they've added like specific bullet points now saying that any law enforcement globally is included in the wording, and it also bars explicitly the use of real-time facial recognition technology on mobile cameras like body cameras, dash cams, to attempt to identify a person in an uncontrolled / in the wild environment. So that is a good thing.
I
The
agree. I mean,
1984 timeline has been pushed back a bit.
I don't know if it has. While this may prevent Microsoft from doing that processing directly, there is likely nothing in the terms of service that says that data brokers can't do it for police departments. This only makes it a little harder. This is the same reason that I think the TikTok ban is a little bit of a challenge, why any number of other ownership models may be problematic for this kind of data. I think that it's probably better that we actually spend time to legislate this in such a way that it's not that they can't that they can't buy it directly. It's that they can't use those technologies. We really want to get serious about what it means for privacy to take effect in the United States, as well as in an era where protest is more and more important and more common. My worry is that unless we stop authorities from doing these kind of things, directly through procedural legislation, we're going to run into trouble. So, this is a place where I think that we aren't doing nearly enough as a society to do these kind of things, but that's kind of outside the realm of the conversation that we usually have on this show. And so I will save that for happy hour or weekend barbecue conversation. But, I was going to say it's nice to see, folks putting up some broad guardrails, even if I'm not sure that can be enforced the way that they are today.
Oh no, was my happy headline basically like a virtue signaling thing from Microsoft? Oh,
Might
it's actually
be.
a sad thing. I mean, I guess at least they're trying. The bar is on the floor, so.
Yep.
But speaking of TikTok and all of that, like TikTok was banned in India ages ago because we started having beef with China a while ago, and oh my God, I used beef in India in the same sentence. I'm sorry. Narendra Modi ji, I do not eat beef. Anyway, hopefully the Indian government is not checking this video out. But what I was going to say was that this happened like so long ago that like hearing about it happening in the US, I don't think India even gave them an option to like divest. They were just like, bye.
Bye. Yep. Well, I mean, I was going to say the different democracies handle things differently. And so it will be very interesting to see if that ban sticks. The First Amendment is pretty clear on a couple of different things that may prevent that ban from going into effect here. So,
Yeah.
from those perspectives, I think that there's a lot to watch. And I think that there's going to be a lot of things as we can keep our eyes on in terms of how those things are adapted to.
On the note of things that could potentially be used for surveillance, the Hubble network makes Bluetooth connection with a satellite for the first time. So Hubble
What?
network has become the first company in history to establish a Bluetooth connection directly to a satellite, a critical technology validation for the company, potentially opening the door to connecting millions more devices anywhere in the world. So get ready, you could get your malware from a satellite.
That's
But they are
exciting.
saying that its technology can be used in markets including logistics, cattle tracking, smart collars for pets, GPS watches for kids, car inventory, construction sites, soil temperature monitoring. Basically, the low-hanging fruit in these is the industries that are so desperate for network coverage, like even once a day, it would really help them. So that's really cool.
Yeah,
Bluetooth in
I mean,
space.
and when we think about the kind of low energy technologies that Bluetooth provides, the amount of distance, we've seen it. I mean, I'm wearing my AirPods right now. I can go 100 feet from this lovely phone that I keep on my desk and still have my AirPods do their thing. So yeah, I was gonna say now Rob is saying 30-meter range my foot. I couldn't be more right. We're doing this at 600 kilometers. And so it's kind of wild to think about it. Now, the headline is very interesting because I first read the headline. I was like, Hubble telescope. And I was like, what? No, Hubble networks. Hubble networks is not Hubble telescope. They are different things. So I was very, very confused. But the idea here is that, there may be some opportunities here to, do some different kinds of tracking with Bluetooth over the Bluetooth protocol from much greater distances. That I'm excited about. I'm a little less excited about it from something that's in orbit, if only because there are very few people who can put things in orbit, and oftentimes we get into surveillance concerns. How about that? We tie those things together. So yeah, I think there's a theme here.
I was also reading some news recently about space trash and how there are now
Mm,
companies trying to solve the space trash problem, which is to get them back into the atmosphere so they just catch fire and hopefully land in the ocean. So that then we can have
yep.
ocean trash.
Oh well, I was going to say at least most of the time it burns up unless you're that guy whose house was hit by
Oh,
a little piece
no.
of the of space trash. It was a pallet of batteries that was kind of pushed out of the space station and meant to burn up in the environment. Little something ended up going through his roof. So yeah, very very exciting, and in terms of how we can do those kind of low energy protocol transactions over the space.
But that guy now has a stream of like passive income where he can just be like, you want to come see the spot where the thing burned through my roof?
I mean, very
25
possibly. Hopefully,
bucks.
he's going to take lots of pictures. So,
Yes, sell them. Speaking of all space stuff, I happen to be wearing like India's version of NASA is ISRO. So this is their Chandrayaan thing that got to the south side of the moon, and we were the first people to do it. Yay! Hopefully, I'll be forgiven for my beef China comment. Except I said it again. Moving
yep.
on. Tom has a story for us.
Well, this was one that I was really excited about because I think that Apple's making adjustments to their plan for DMA compliance, and so that's the Digital Markets Act, which is available in the EU. And so there are a couple of things that were happening related to this. Apple's decided that the iPadOS is also a gatekeeper platform, which makes sense. It's just iOS, but for a tablet. And that additional application stores are going to need to focus to be usable on those systems as well. So, I think that this is a really positive step in the right direction for a more open market for app stores. And I think that this is really a place where where the European Union is a little bit different than the American government in terms of what is a monopoly, what is not a monopoly, what's an illegal monopoly versus what's a legal monopoly. What's a monopsony is a whole different story for a different podcast, probably one for the folks at Marketplace. But I think that there are a lot of good things coming out of this, including adjustments to the core technology fee that is going to make hobbyist developers happy. In terms of if the core technology fee is very very important. in terms of how Apple charges for the development platform that they have. When there's no way for them to collect direct payments. So the fact that they are making this more optional for hobbyist and free app developers, I think, is a really positive thing. So I'm very excited to see what this leads to in terms of openness of the App Store platform, and excited for that future. I think that we're seeing a very different conversation here between Apple and the rest of the world. I am really enjoying the pressure that is being put on Cupertino here to make this a more competitive space, to make this a more equitable space, to make this a more user-friendly, user-centric space. And I was going to say, being forced to innovate, being forced to defend their decisions instead of opening up to a broader market is really, really solid. So I think that the things that we're seeing in the European market is positive, and I hope that those changes gradually come to the rest of the world as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that that's really solid. And for organizations that are like, hey, I only want to work with the Apple App Store, you're welcome to do that. There are new settings that are going to be available in future versions of macOS that will allow you to deny third-party app stores, that will allow you to say only stuff from the VPP store or IPA files that I supply directly will be available in the platform. So you're in control as an admin, but your users can also have additional control, which I think is positive.
When you said IPA file, my first thought was like India Pale Ale.
I love a good hopsy beer, but that is not what that's for. That's the the iPad
thing.
or the iOS package application. So
I know, but it was a fun coincidence. I suddenly thought of an app that I read about many years ago, which was just like a flex thing. It cost some 6-digit amount of money, and all it did was like display an image of a diamond or something. And people bought it. Talk about making easy money. I can't even. IPA makes me drink many IPAs, says Rob. Oh yes, rich.app, that's the one. I am rich is what it was called.
Yep. Well, and there's a bunch of things where, I don't think Apple has been a perfect steward of the App Store, and or even sometimes a good steward. And so I think that is a challenge that they have to resolve as we go through these things.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, we were reading a news article about like a fake LastPass app that looked really similar, but it was like spelled LASS pass.
Yes.
And it made it through onto the App Store and like successfully, I don't know, mined a bunch of passwords. So yes, that is all that we had planned for today, but we have a few more minutes. Do you have a few more minutes, Tom? We can just chit-chat a bit.
I'm always happy to go straight up to the end of the hour. I would like to go at like 29 so that I have a moment to stand up before my 12:30. But I was going to say
sure.
that would be nice. So I was going to say I'd love to hear with individual folks on how things are going. I was going to say we saw the chat has been super active today, which I love seeing, because I think that it really shows that now. Rob, bringing the fine commentary here. Brandon asked an amazing question. What's Tom's first non-App Store app that you want to install? Okay, so I've been watching all of the stuff with Delta and the different, Game Boy emulators that are available for there. I want that, but make it Commodore 64. Because that was the original computer that I played a lot of games on, was a Commodore 64. So sign me up for a Commodore 64 emulator where I can play all of the great games from Serious Software, Type Attack, Squish 'em, a bunch of Fast Eddie, and a bunch of those other, the other games from that era that would be incredible. So sign me up for that, or an original like Intel emulator to go after, or 8086 games from why can I not think of that, Sierra Online. Some of those real old vintage computer games would be tremendous for me from an iOS perspective. I would love to see that. I think that there's also room for applications that are really meant for I don't know, that where Apple has just found things distasteful. And I would love to see some of those old Mac games as well. Like Kelly mentioned, Spaceward Ho, total classic, Mac OS 7 game from that era. Lots of really, really great stuff. So Nathan asks a more pertinent question, which is back to USB storage policy for a second. Shouldn't there be a warning on the old Mac policy indicating that it doesn't work anymore? There is, but you're right. It's not as it is not as explicit as it should be. Look at the OS versions that are associated with it. We also will not apply that to individual systems running anything later than macOS 11. So look for that policy to go away as time goes by. We wanted to get the new policy out there and allow people to transition more gradually. We'll obviously be watching that over the next 6 months as that goes through the process. And are there any policy cons to keeping the old policy in place? Asks Brandon. No, there aren't. The operating system treats it as damage and routes around it. So, from that perspective, it just doesn't enforce those particular objects. We also will not apply it to any system running. I believe it's macOS 12 and later will not be applied that policy. So it's still technically supported in macOS 11. And so we won't deprecate it directly from those systems, but we would strongly recommend and discontinuing its use in favor of that new version. Brandon asks another great question. I love this. What's Tom's biggest ask for the next macOS? A version of Platform SSO that's working and good would be probably my number one. Platform SSO as a technology is interesting, and I'll point people at Joel Rennick's talk from Mac Sysadmin in last October in terms of where it's problematic. And why we don't think it's necessarily a great version of the technology. It doesn't work on new devices because the first user has to already be created in order for a Platform SSO user to be created. I don't love that. I think that's bad. It's also entirely free of MFA. And so any check for a Platform SSO transaction can't have an MFA included in it. It is 2024, friends. The MFA is not optional. And while they're saying, oh, well, the device is a possession factor, not a device that's not all the way set up yet. So, I think those are a couple of things that I would like them to fix in PSSO and that we've submitted feedback on. Obviously, I would like software update to work all the time, every time, and be a lot more reliable. It's better in macOS 14 than it was in 13 or 12. It's not problem-free. And so I'm very, very hopeful that those things get to be a little bit more refined as we go into macOS next, whatever it is, if it's macOS 15 or if they come up with a great name, we'll see. And you'll hear about it here first on the IT Hour.
I personally just want a phone that's going to actually fit in my hands because I've got not so big hands, and I just want to be able to
You don't have giant, basketball player mitts? So
I just want to be able to touch the other side of the screen with one hand. Why is that so hard? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. But when Nathan was asking about about an indication or warning about the old policy, I was thinking about Clippy showing up and being like, hey, Nathan, looks like you're trying to do a thing. And you should format it bullet points instead. Should we bring back Clippy? What's something? I feel like the Duolingo owl today is what Clippy was back then.
Not a fan.
No.
Do not want.
Not a fan of Clippy.
I've had it with animated mascots. I'm not down. I don't need that. We don't need Jumpy. Jumpy is not required. There's a fun story about that, which I will tell someday, not when I'm being recorded. Those are things that should stay dead. We should not anthropomorphize our technologies. So.
On that note of wisdom, we will let Tom go to his many other meetings of doing important things.
Thank you, friend. And great to see everybody today. Please try the USB blocking and tell me how it works for you. I would love to hear more about feedback from folks in terms of whether or not you tried those Jazz drives, because I want to hear if anybody gets that working in 2024. I want to hear about it. So.
Thank you, Tom. Have a good day. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and we will see you next week. We don't have a plan just yet for next week, but we will announce something soon, so keep a lookout for that. Bye, everybody. Happy Friday.